Cast your mind back to the family road trips of the 1970s, when the sight of Howard Johnson's orange roofs promised a warm welcome and a tasty meal. Where did these roadside havens go? From a beloved soda fountain to an American empire, this is the history of America's forgotten food giant. Join us on a sentimental journey of original footage and unique photographs to revisit the glory days of Howard Johnson's and uncover the story of its disappearance, rekindling the memories of a bygone era in American travel and why it matters today. The birth of a giant. Howard Deering Johnson was born in 1897 in Boston and grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts. His father ran a cigar business, which Howard joined after dropping out of school. However, the rise of cigarettes led to declining cigar sales, and the business failed. Howard's father died when he was 24, leaving him a business drowning in debt. In 1925, Howard turned a new page by buying a Quincy drugstore and soda fountain. Backed by his mother's loan, this move sparked Howard Johnson's legacy. Howard Johnson's journey into the food industry started with a simple yet delicious twist in ice cream. He experimented and created a unique ice cream with double the butter fat, making it creamier than any other at the time. His 28 flavors ranging from banana to coconut became a hit in the local community. In 1926 and 1927, Howard opened seasonal ice cream stands in Massachusetts resort areas. These weren't ordinary stands. One sold 14,000 cones in a single Sunday. They also offered hot dogs, then called Frankfurts, which turned out to be a hit. Johnson's dream went beyond ice cream. What happened when he opened his first full-service restaurant? Stay tuned for a surprising turn. In 1929, at 32, Howard boldly opened his first restaurant in Quincy with a notable $50,000 bank loan. Located beneath the city's tallest building, it was a statement of ambition and strategy. Howard's big break came unexpectedly. A controversial play, Eugene O'Neill's Strange Interlude, banned in Boston, was allowed to play in Quincy. The play, over 4 hours long with a dinner break, brought Boston's elite to Quincy. Johnson's restaurant, located nearby, became swamped with theatergoers. This exposure launched the restaurant's reputation throughout Boston. Riding the wave of success, Howard aimed to grow his brand in Cape Cod. Short on funds, he cleverly partnered with a local family in 1935, sharing his recipes and brand for a spot on their land. The franchise revolution. Franchising wasn't new, but Howard Johnson's approach was revolutionary. How did he change the game? The next segment reveals his groundbreaking strategy. Johnson took the franchising concept and ran with it, but for full-service restaurants, it is a much trickier business. After opening his first franchise in 1935, he quickly added more, mixing franchises with company-owned stores. By 1940, there were 132 Howard Johnson's restaurants. His brand became known in New England thanks to his 28 famous ice cream flavors and a menu filled with American classics like pot pies, fried chicken, and fried clams. Johnson worked hard to make his fried clams the best in New England. A standout moment came with Howard Johnson's in Queens, New York City. Lydia Pinkham Gove, heiress to a fortune in patent medicines, invested in this massive restaurant. Opened in 1940 near the New York World's Fair, this two-story eatery could seat 1,000 people. It was a hit, especially on Sundays, and raked in huge profits. The peak of Hojo's. From ice cream to a national phenomenon, but how did Howard Johnson's maintain its edge? Up next, we dive into the meticulous methods behind the brand's success. Johnson liked running company-owned stores, using franchising when cash was tight. His focus was on perfecting his franchise system. He built commissaries to prepare foods to exact recipes. These frozen foods were shipped weekly to restaurants. Every Howard Johnson followed a detailed Bible covering everything from recipes to staff uniforms. Johnson was meticulous, allowing no changes or experiments in his restaurants. His dedication was total, no hobbies, just a relentless focus on his food and restaurants. Though he did enjoy the wealth it brought by collecting art and owning yachts and mansions. But Howard Johnson's ambitions knew no limits. What happened when Howard decided to venture into the hotel business? Let's find out. In the 1920s, when cars became a big deal, people started taking road trips and driving around on Sundays. This led to the boom of roadside eateries, ranging from small tea rooms to shabby shacks. The catch? The food wasn't always great, and getting sick was a common risk. Despite the 1930s Great Depression, this kind of tourism kept growing because it was an affordable luxury for anyone with a car. Howard Johnson saw an opportunity in this trend. He began placing his restaurants in the best possible spots. He looked for busy roads, intersections, and places where you could see the restaurant from a mile away. Instead of using ugly, handmade billboards, Johnson made his restaurants eye-catching. He chose a classic New England white building design and topped it with a bright orange roof. This roof was easy to spot both in the daytime and at night when it lit up. He also added a steeple with his Simple Simon and the Pie Man symbol, making the buildings hard to miss. Howard Johnson understood the importance of the family in this growing tourism market. Back then, tea rooms struggled with noisy kids and roadside shacks weren't welcoming for many women. Johnson cracked the code on how to make families feel comfortable. His restaurants had something for everyone. Lollipops for kids, a variety of ice cream flavors, and a cozy, family-friendly vibe. This approach was a big change in roadside dining. Johnson's mix of great locations, standout buildings, a welcoming atmosphere for families, and consistently good food made Howard Johnson's a hit in the American middle-class restaurant scene. When the first toll road in America, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, opened, Howard Johnson's was the natural choice for the Service Plaza restaurants. These opened in 1940 and were built from local stone, but they still stood out and helped spread the company's fame. Challenges and decline. Every empire faces challenges, but how did Howard Johnson respond to the shifting American landscape? Stay with us as we explore the factors that began to unravel this culinary giant. World War II hit hard. With sugar scarce, Howard Johnson struggled to make its famous ice cream. Gas rationing and fathers going to war meant fewer family road trips. The chain shrank to just 12 restaurants. Even the big Queens location couldn't survive. To keep going, the company shifted to making food for troops. After the war, things changed. The American economy boomed, especially in the early 1950s. More highways, more cars, and more families perfectly matched Howard Johnson's model. The company adapted but kept its core: big signs, orange roofs, and attention to detail. It expanded across the Midwest and the South, earning the affectionate nickname Hojo's. No other American restaurant chain was as famous or widespread as Hojo's. The 1950s and 60s were golden years for Howard Johnson's. In 1959, Howard passed the presidency to his 26-year-old son, Howard B. Bud Johnson, fresh from Harvard Business School. Yet the elder Johnson stayed in control, continuing his meticulous management. The company maintained its high food quality, and in 1961, its stock hit the stock exchange. In 1953, Howard Johnson saw another opportunity. Travelers needed reliable places to stay. The first restaurant and motor lodge opened in Savannah, Georgia. This mix of company-operated and franchised inns became a huge profit source. By the mid-60s, Howard Johnson's was America's largest restaurant chain and a major player in roadside hotels. In 1965, a restaurant opened in Mesa, California, marking a coast-to-coast presence. In 1968, Howard Deering Johnson retired, handing complete control over to his son, Bud. Howard passed away in 1972. Under Bud's leadership, the company kept growing, with profits and revenues climbing through the 1970s. By 1975, Howard Johnson's had a vast network of restaurants and motor lodges across the U.S. and beyond. Profits in 1977 hit $30 million. Despite these impressive numbers, trouble brewed underneath. But Johnson focused on cutting food costs, which historically were high, sometimes accounting for 48% of revenues. This led to a drop in food quality. Standards for franchises slipped, and Howard Johnson's brand started to look outdated and sometimes unclean. This dip in quality came at the worst possible time. The fast food era was dawning, with giants like McDonald's under Ray Kroc leading the way. These new competitors had leaner operations, smaller menus, and lower prices. The lodging sector also saw new players emerging. The fall of an empire. So, what remains of Howard Johnson's today? By 1979, Bud Johnson decided to exit the business, selling Howard Johnson's to Imperial Group for $630 million. Under Imperial's management, the brand continued to decline. Attempts to modernize the restaurants and motels had little success. In 1985, Marriott acquired Howard Johnson's for just half of what Imperial had paid. Marriott, which had no interest in continuing the Howard Johnson's brand, sold off the lodging operations and either closed or rebranded the restaurants. The once mighty Howard Johnson's restaurants fell, leaving only one in operation in upstate New York by 2020, with poor ratings on Yelp and TripAdvisor. The lodging side fared somewhat better. Now under Wyndham, branded as Howard Johnson by Wyndham, the inns are part of the economy segment of Wyndham's vast portfolio. As of the end of 2020, there were 310 locations worldwide, but they generated the lowest average room revenues per night in the Wyndham Group. This group includes well-known names like Super 8, Days Inn, La Quinta, Ramada, Travel Age, and Baymont. Restaurants usually don't last as long as hotels. If you check a 1960s travel guide, many top restaurants from then are gone or not popular anymore. But most hotels from that time were still hotels, just with new owners. Howard Johnson's fell faster than most. After the founder left, things went downhill. At its best, Hojo's was huge, maybe even bigger than McDonald's is now. But this success didn't last long. It was less than 30 years.